We're on the lookout for sponsors to join us on our incredible journey with Inspired Change with Gunter. If your organisation cares deeply about meaningful conversations around masculinity, self-development and mental health, we'd love to partner with you. Our podcast has a wonderful, dedicated audience committed to personal growth and positive social change. By sponsoring Inspired Change with Gunter, your brand will connect with listeners who truly value thoughtful discussion and support initiatives that promote real transformation. We're incredibly proud to be ranked number 1 in Australia and number 5 in the USA on FeedSpot's top men's mental health podcasts. For more information on how to become a sponsor, please reach out to Miranda Spigener-Sapon, our showrunner and executive producer. We'd love to explore how we can work together to inspire change. Now, thank you for your continued support, and let's keep inspiring change together.
You're listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. To guide us through the intricacies and intersections of emotions, relationships, and male identity is renowned psychologist, author, and speaker Gunter Swoboda. This is Inspire Change.
Before I begin the actual podcast, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I work. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. Welcome everybody to another episode of Inspired Change with Gunter.
Hey everybody, all our Inspired Change listeners out there. Yes, you're seeing me, the showrunner, and DeVonna Prinzi, our co-executive producer. You hear her in the gratitude a lot of times. Gunter is out working on his PhD and dissertation, so he will be out this week. So DeVonna and I have raided the studio. We are taking over the mics, and we got some fun little conversation, just coffee style. Pull up a seat, relax, and let's see what we can learn together. This is episode season 8, 327, and we're going to talk about why we react so fast and how to take back control.
Hello, Miranda.
Yeah.
And to all our listeners, it's my absolute pleasure to be here with all of you.
Yeah, DeVonna, it's fun. We've been kind of wanting to do this for a while, and I know we're gonna have some more where we actually have Gunther on here too as well. But yeah, as I said, I'm the showrunner and the executive producer of the show. DeVonna is the co-executive producer. She does our gratitude segment, where we shout out our listeners and people who are listening all around the world, because now we're fastly approaching that 200K global mark. That's 200K per week, almost. We're about 100. We're holding steady at like 175K listeners. Anyway, so yeah, this is just going to be coffee style. Little notes, here and there, just so we can, see what we go. Now, DeVonna, to dive right in, if I'm really being honest, and I'm someone who naturally, goes at full speed, not just as an artist or a business person, but I'm like, go, 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 go. We got to get this done. It's now, 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 blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, I know you're going to have fun with this one. Learning to slow down has been one of my biggest challenges. And, it's been a road to get there, but, finally I feel better when I slow down. So.
Yes, and I can attest to that, Miranda. It has been difficult for all of us go-getters to slow down and learn to balance and keep our inner peace through all of our endeavors. We want to take on so much at one time, and we have to learn to kind of step back a bit. But Miranda, I have to say, the last year, 2 years, a couple years that you have made great strides to do that. You have really shifted down, and you didn't really have a big choice though. With my disability, you had to slow down so I can keep up. But
Yeah,
all joking aside, though, you're right. You did feel better. I felt better. We all felt better when we're balanced and we're not pushing ourselves so fast and so hard.
yeah, exactly. And even the hubby had went on a temporary disability, with his accident a while back in late 2024. So that also helped kick me into that. Okay, let's slow down because now you're balancing caregiving, you're balancing this, and there's just so many factors that just the progress that comes, and we'll dive into more of that as we go through, as we discover in this little conversation. But yeah, uh one of the first segments that we're gonna dive into is reaction versus response, and kind of what that means. And it's
Yeah.
all about where awareness, that's where the change actually begins. And most of us, we live in a reactionary mode. We live, in that all the time. And wouldn't you agree?
Oh, most definitely. Most of the world is in reaction and survival mode, to say the least. And the best thing one can do is to center oneself and take a few deep breaths. I like to do 5 to 10, but whatever takes for you to shift, whatever it takes for you to shift your mind to focusing on the breath entering and leaving your body. Making that mind body connection enables you to shift back to being centered, less reactionary. It's always best when you have a gut reaction if you can just take a beat and see if you still feel that way before reacting. Breathing helps with this because you can count to 5 or whatever, and you're taking an actual measured amount of time. That
Right.
pause.
Yeah, you're so right, Devonna, on all of that. And that pause, it can feel very like uncomfortable, even abnormal, because you know slowing down is, sometimes we think it's weakness, but that's just our brain kind of maybe trying to tell us that because of being in the fast mode. But it really is not. It's a strength. It's more empowerment, and it's control. But so it's just getting out of that this doesn't feel right. No, it's actually more powerful and more self control than you think.
Right.
Like, have you noticed that how fast we react before we even think?
Oh, of course, Miranda. We've both put a lot of work into not being reactionary with one another, because we work so closely and because we're close friends. So we want to treat each other well. So we've worked really hard at not being reactionary. We saw the discord in the few times of being that way, how it caused disruption all around us, and with our relationship as friends, it even caused some strife there for a little bit. And we saw that in the past, and where we were reactionary with each other, and we wanted to change that and create a more symbiotic exchange. So we had to work on not being so quick to be reactionary and to actually take a breath and take a moment. So we're speaking from experience of something that we've worked through.
Yeah, and so what actually happens when you pause? When you take that time to go, step back, pause.
Well, it gives my brain a chance to catch up with my emotions, my feelings, and I don't snap at people so quickly. So I've become a different type of communicator. So a different person, if you will, by just focusing on centering and not being reactionary and being consciously aware of the moment that I'm in.
Yeah, and you know, when you do that, when these moments where you're going super fast, it actually going fast works against you. I mean,
Absolutely.
totally.
Absolutely. When I go fast, when I don't maintain my work rest balance, whatever I'm trying to accomplish, it seems to get harder, more frustrating. It doesn't get done adequately, or even if it does get done adequately, I'm so frustrated at pushing myself. With my personal situation, my pain then goes off the charts too. So, but in general, when you're pushing and not being in the flow or in the moment and consciously aware of the energy that's around you and your own energy, it becomes chaos when you go fast. It's just and then you miss things. You always miss something when you're going fast. I remember when I first started slowing you down. um, um, Literally going, okay, hold on. And I remember that because you were accustomed to being all on your own, going, you had to go as fast as you possibly could, get everything done as much as you could. But bringing in support, and those to assist made it a different ball game, but it still took you some time to shift, like anybody. I'm not pointing my finger at you particularly. You've done great. I'm marvelously happy with your progress and my progress. We've grown together as human beings just by this one thing that we're talking about. Just by being more aware and taking a breath.
And what have you personally learned just from taking that pause and slowing down?
I've learned it's worth taking my time, even if it's longer than I think it should be, and to not be so hard on myself. Oh my gosh, that is one that just gives me goosebumps saying it, because if you're not hard on yourself and you encourage yourself, that's you have to remember, whatever you're giving your energy to, it brings it louder, bigger, stronger, so watch what your focus is and don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah, and that's going to drive us. It's trying not to be perfect.
Right.
That's something that's going to drive us right into segment two of the podcast is, and many, especially our female listeners out there, whether you're a business person, a mom, a fur mom, whatever, we're all human. And so as women, we typically we have that perfection brain where we think, we have to be perfect. We have to da 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 da, you know, and that's actually unhealthy. You know, it's not,
Yes.
because we aren't perfect. And perfection actually blocks growth and creates unrealistic expectations amongst ourselves. And so, yeah, I mean, I
And
know you can
it
relate
creates
to
more
that.
stress. Like you said, you're putting unrealistic expectations on yourself. That creates more stress, and you don't function well in stress. So yes, often it's better to say, this is good enough. It accomplishes the goal. Good. Learn, grow, move on. Stop
Yeah.
trying to stress yourself out, or try to not stress yourself out about it, and just try to release it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. Okay, next time, you've learned some things, you can tweak it the next time around if you're going to do it again.
Yeah, that as the section is called, the pressure to be perfect.
Right.
That is that's a caveat, and it's something that we all deal with, and then you go into that, and I found myself doing this, and I know you have at times. I should have known that. I
Oh
should
yeah.
have had this figured out. How
Yep.
many times do we say I should have figured out? And then there's that one person that says, "Well, how would you have known?" You know, I mean, okay, deal with it, move on, but you can't have it all figured out.
No, but the pressure comes from inside ourselves and society, though. That's where the trap comes from, is, we're
Hmm.
often told, if we're not the best, if we, don't try our hardest, we won't make it. But the key is to be your own best without putting yourself unnecessarily through the fire. And when I say fire, that's stressing yourself out to the point that you're frazzled. So yeah,
Hmm.
I have also, we all face that trap of I shoulda, coulda, woulda, and you can't do the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Just what is, what can be, what do you want it to be? Okay, can you do that? Yes or no? That's about it.
And taking a breath, going back to
Oh
like in
yeah.
the earlier segment, it's all about that. And and that leads us to is what actually happens when we don't meet our own expectations, you know?
Well, we have to learn and forgive ourselves like you and I have had to do, Miranda. We have to love ourselves, which we've also had to work on that one too. Oh my goodness, yes, forever and ever. We will continue to work on that together. That is our oath to each other, is to love ourselves and each other and to continue to move toward growth and to move forward with the knowledge that we couldn't attain it any other way. Without going through those things, whatever it is, whatever you're trying to hem yourself up about, instead of hemming yourself up about it, forgive yourself, because you wouldn't have learned whatever knowledge, like, that trap. How could you have known? You couldn't have known. And
Yeah,
telling yourself, I shoulda. Well, you can't know. And the only way to know is to go through it or to work through it. Just try to be as gentle as you possibly can with yourself, because you've obtained knowledge you couldn't have gotten any other way. And most likely no one else has that knowledge the way you do. So you have something then that you can share.
yeah, exactly. And that, didn't we produce a film called that I directed called What It Means to Be Human?
Oh my
What it
goodness,
means.
yes, yes, yes.
Uh,
How could I forget? Yes.
because yeah, I mean, we can never, we gotta always remember at the end of the day that we're only human. Perfection doesn't matter. That's, you can get close to it, but if you constantly think, oh well, you're perfect, I'm not good enough, and then it just it crushes you. And
Yeah, it's
so,
unrealistic.
and it's yeah, and it's not always about fixing it, it's recognizing what can we do if we can't fix this, what can we do to work the problem? I've seen
Absolutely.
movies where I think it was even something like The Martian, when they were in a situation trying to bring him back, and and I think it was Jessica Chastain's character, and she's like, "Okay, everybody, focus. Let's work the problem." They know they can't totally fix it, but they know how can we get him back, and that's the goal. What's the workaround? How pivoting. Those are the things, and that's part of being human.
Yeah,
It's
not everything
recognizing.
can be fixed, but almost everything can be recognized. And just acknowledging that, remember we were talking about, being consciously aware. Just
Mhm.
acknowledging what you're consciously aware of, can just it's enough to just smooth the situation out completely.
And there's, like I said, like, and while you said there's nothing that it can't always be fixed, but there is always a solution. The solution is always there.
Right.
And that's what we have to look at. Changing our mindset to say, well, I can fix it. I can fix it. Well, yeah, you can fix it, but fixing it is actually in the solution. And that's where we need to shift from that. Like, yeah, it's not going to be the way the plan. I'm always like, well, how often does our plan A go? And what are we on plan?
Generally
Are we
plan
on
A gets
plan D
twisted.
right now, or are we on plan Z? I'm not sure. How many times we have to reboot, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, now it's a new company. Da 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 da. Whatever the problem is, we found it. We worked the problem, and we found the solution. We didn't necessarily
Right.
fix everything, but we found it, and 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 realizing a workaround is not always a bad thing. Sometimes that workaround is better than the initial, you know, what the initial plan was. You're like, I know that was ideal, but I think it's kind of better like this
Right.
because
And
we
then
found ourselves in it.
you and I tend to not focus on the defeat of whatever plan failed, but the success of whatever plan worked. So that's always a good thing, to focus on the positive.
Yeah, exactly. And that leads us right into segment three, which is progress over perfection. And that's just gold. I mean, little things like small shifts that create change, or you don't need to have it all figured out.
Oh no, you can't figure it all out. First of all, I mean, if you can, then you're probably, well, even AI can't figure it all out. So, um, but small changes that are sustainable, and for real change to happen, that's what has to take place, because something that you can remain invested in, like small changes toward big goals, is the way to make things happen. Figure out the general thing, and then figure out a couple of three small things to get to that general thing, and then you're on your way.
Yeah,
But you
it's
have to be
it's the
aware.
Yeah, my favorite saying is the little things. It's aware, and that creates awareness, small adjustment, momentum, and it's all about the
Absolutely.
little things, because the little things lead to the big things. If you can get, sometimes you're like just skipping from, oh, I got to get to this milestone. Well, hey, we're inching forward. We might be moving like snail, but like when people say slow and easy wins the race, because you're not rushing. When you rush to the finish line, you get a cramp, just like a runner. You you may pass out. You may have a heart palpitation, and you end up having to call in the ambulance to come onto the track and wheel you off. And then does that not set you back? Just like with your pain management, when you start rushing yourself to get done, and we've learned to slow down, you being aware of our situation, your situation, being aware of and mindful of everybody around you, it's giving yourself that adjustment, and then you accomplish the goal. Because I notice when you push yourself too much, then you are down for 2 weeks, you know?
Right. Exactly.
And
I
where
have
does
to
that get
maintain
us?
that balance. Right.
Yeah,
So, yeah, you have to give yourself permission to be in the process, and actually, like when you talk about awareness, that reminds me that when you talk about awareness, that reminds me some of the things that you said about, the runner, for example, getting a cramp, etc. You're not enjoying the race if you're,
mm,
the race of life, so to speak. If you're pushing yourself too hard and you're not nurturing yourself and taking care of yourself, and you're not maintaining some kind of balance, generally you won't make it to the whatever the goal was, or the race, the finish line, so to speak. But the question is, am I enjoying this? Can I sustain this? Because if the answer is no, then you need to reevaluate what you're doing to yourself and the setup that
yeah,
you're setting up for yourself.
exactly, exactly. And that reminds me of another favorite saying that I have, where it's not about the destination, it's always about the journey. Because on the journey, there are many destinations. People don't always realize that, because you're always thinking, okay, I want to be a top level, director or showrunner or whatever, and I want to have this, da, 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 da. And I'm like, well, no one actually, I mean, there are people that have gotten that, but there's different ways. And I'm thinking, whatever your goals are, you want to be the top producer, or you want to be, you know, have, you want to have a nice big house, or whatever it is. It's little destinations. Okay, so maybe you bought your first home. It's not big, but you're living comfortably. You're happy. You're taking pauses. It's all about the little progresses. Oh, you bought your first home. It doesn't matter what size it is. You don't need to. You can't keep up with the Joneses. There's a no plug to necessarily Apple TV, but there's a great show on there called Your Friends and Neighbors, and the theme song. You know, as he's slowly walking, the main character, played by John Hamm, he's walking, and you'll have to check this out on Apple TV. But it's like, I love the subliminal message in that opening, where he's walking during the opening credits, the main character, and all the material things around him are like exploding or breaking apart, like the house, part of the roof, and it's like in slow mo. He's walking kind of in slow, but everything around him is like popping out of place. The watch, the nice Rolex watch, bust apart. The car tires pop off the car of the Maserati, and he's just walking through. He just keeps going forward. And I said, that was brilliant. That was the most brilliant opening for a TV show, because that's life. Things are going to
Right.
hinder us, things are going to be around us. Yes, there's things we want. You want that new car. You know, you don't need to necessarily have the G Wagon or the BMW, but you want something nice that's going to get you from point A to point B and doesn't necessarily look too bad, especially if you're having to pull up at a red carpet event. You know, there's different. Get what's it's like, you don't always get what you want, but you know what you need, and that is usually ends up being what you want in the end. And I know I've brought up many metaphors and analogies there, but there was just something golden, and that montage kind of affected me. I'm like, I love that, you know, and it's about the message. when you take that breath, you, you're giving yourself permission. You're giving yourself permission to be in the process. So that's kind of what I was leading up to with all that.
Yeah, well, giving yourself permission, like I mentioned before, that's important to be in the process. I think that's what I had said.
Hmm.
And it can be a difficult one, but it's very important to not fight yourself. When you say, okay, this is what I have to do to go through this. That's where taking that breath can help again, because when you're trying to reach progress, there is a process for that, and that's what we've been talking about basically this whole
Hmm.
segment.
Yeah, and that's when I brought up, like, in the theme song, like, even of that show, when all that stuff's going on, the background is saying you can't keep up with the Joneses, instead of saying, because everybody, the Joneses, everybody has a Jones in their life, whether it's the neighbor or it's a friend or whatever, and you're like constantly comparing. You're like, well, they got this and they had this and they've got a family and 2.5 kids and a dog and a cat, and then they got this giant house and da 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 da. Well, what's right for you? You know, and that leads me to, like, what does progress actually look like in real life when you're not trying to compare to the Joneses?
Um, so for me, it's back to maintaining those small changes that
Hmm.
will result in your end goal. So, and if for
Hmm.
some reason the ones you've set, you don't see that progress working the way you thought, just reevaluate it, be aware and make
Uh
that
huh.
small adjustment so that you maintain your momentum again, like we mentioned before.
Yeah, and exactly, and actually, when I said, like, everybody has their own Joneses, well, we actually are Joneses for somebody else. Devon, there's some people like, Devonna's got it all, and you might not think, because you're over there thinking, well, I want to be like, Kathy over there or whoever. So, Kathy, we're not talking about you; it's just a made up person. But you are actually, I am too. We're all each other's Joneses. And how are you going to, why are you comparing yourself to each other? In real life, you have
Right.
to think
You have to be
within
your
yourself.
measuring stick. You are your own measuring
Hmm.
stick. Don't compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to yourself.
Hmm.
Am I a better person from when I did this or that or the other?
Yeah, exactly,
It
exactly.
reminds me of a
And
song, Miranda, that I've been listening to. If I was you, I'd want to be me too. But
exactly.
and a movie that I watched the other day where it goes, yeah, it looks normal from across the street. It's like, yeah, it looks okay, it looks that way from across the street. In other words, the grass is always greener on the other side. So don't hang yourself up with those fixations and the things that
Yeah,
society imposes upon you, but find your own truth and center and measure yourself from that.
because across the street, on the other side of the pond, it always looks
Hmm.
beautiful.
Oh yeah.
But what's going on the inside? Is there chaos? Yeah, what is one small shift that someone can take away this week? What can they do?
Well, as I mentioned before, if you need to shift your emotions or feelings, breathe. It's called breath work, and use the meditation. A simple exercise that I use is to tighten and relax each portion of my body, starting with my head and any muscle I can tighten, in
Hmm.
my face, and then I work my way all the way down, just being aware of what it feels like to tighten each muscle and then relax it, and then I combine that with some deep breathing, and this generally just melts away the stress. So that helps. That's one shift people can do. Another shift is just besides stopping and taking just one breath, to take and if they don't want to do breath work necessarily, to just go inside themselves and think, to take that beat like we talked earlier, take that
Yeah,
coffee, take that walk, step away from a situation that's causing stress or causing you to amp up, and decelerate that.
exactly. And just like, as we had without going into it, we had a catastrophe just now. in the middle of a studio session, we took a beat. We let you handle what you needed to, and then okay, how can we shift so we can move along this? And yeah, take a drive, take a minute, even close your eyes if you can't. If meditation's not your thing, there's so many things. Go play a video game. Do something that brings you joy. Watch TV, listen to music, whatever it is, and that will
Yes.
help you find your center and your balance. So yeah, that's brilliant. So that brings us to our final and fourth segment, that dark to light moment. And Devonna, that's our signature. That's always been our signature since we've known each other, but it's also bled into the motto of Bonfire Cinema and even the previous company that we were part of. That's something we've kept no matter what, is that we must always find the light through the darkness in everything in life, our projects, whatever. How can we share that light? So,
Well,
yeah.
wherever you put your focus and your energy, you grow that and you bring it into reality. And we want the entire world to have the tools to find the light in the darkness. And whatever tools we have acquired along the way, we want to share them. And we do that through cinema and publishing and things of that nature. And that's how we've learned to be able to give what we have to give. And so, you know, the whole world, or the world in which you're living, could be dark. It could be the world itself, it could be your personal situation or struggles, but look hard enough and you'll generally find a sliver of light or something positive to focus on, and grow that, just that one positive thought amongst
Mm-hmm.
all the inner noise, amongst all the outer noise. Grab onto it and grow that, whatever that positive is, whether it's I like myself in red, and you go put on something red, or tomorrow I get to go to church. Whatever it is that brings you joy in those dark times, focus on that. Reach out to someone that cares,
Yeah.
and find your light in the darkness every time.
Exactly. Growth happens in the tension. We don't cry over spilt milk or spilt coffee, like just happened a minute
That
ago.
was our
You know,
catastrophe.
you'll get it when you get to it. It's not gonna die. Yeah, it's irritating you because it's on the floor and you're like, "Meh," but you'll get it. And so growth happens in the moment, in the tension. Leave room for improv. It's not about perfection. Awareness plus choice. Just like, just to go into a tiny thing, Lifelines, when we were filming that, yes, we had a script. We had the actors, everybody knew their lines. But one thing I like to do is an actor, when Lou Temple walked on the set, he goes, "How did we get to this scene?" I was like, "Oh, you're right. That scene is really way too short." We ended up inserting several like short improv scenes that told a little bit of backstory, that helped us get to that so the audience can go, ah, this is why he ended up punching his father because of the trigger. And yeah, what didn't seem right. There was something that led to that. And that the beauty is in that improv. You don't want to be full improv, but a balance of what, because life is unscripted, but we all have a plan. But plans get blown to hell, and so it's the growth is always in the tension. It comes out of that, and things a lot of times it's better. You're like, I think we're better now than the original plan, because then there's life lessons. We're always learning life lessons along the way. So yeah, just giving your space to choose differently, and you'll see that light.
I couldn't agree more. It's not about perfection. It is the awareness plus your choice. And the shift isn't about becoming perfect. It's about shifting into awareness, and becoming more aware. So paying closer attention and being more aware will always lead you to discoveries you could only dream of.
Yeah, exactly. And Um, one thing I want to just tell our listeners and close is that if there's something here that just resonated within our conversation that you can kind of take away, try to sit back and noticing your own reactions, your own reactorial behaviors this week, and see what happens. Just kind of see, give yourself that space, give yourself that moment to before you actually respond or react to something. And again, if you want to go deeper, all you guys, if you want to and have a deeper connection, we have this really amazing growing community on Patreon. The link is in the show notes and on many of our socials, so you can easily go to patreon.com/inspire change. That's patreon.com/inspire change. We will have up to date details on there'll be perks. Yeah, there's some swag in there too, depending on what level you're on. Discounts to some of Gunter's books, some projects that we may have that can help people grow and change. And you can start as a free member and then, little by little, see where you go from there. It's not about, the money spent on that. It's about your well-being and where you can go. So you can even do, we throw in perks all the time for sometimes the upper perks for our members that are on the supporter tier. So just go check it out. Sign up and join the community, and let's help each other find the light through the darkness. We're all in this together. And Gunter will be back next week with another range of topics, and I'll be with you, but behind the scenes, as well as DeVonna. You'll hear her in the gratitudes. So lots of things going on from there. So thank you so much for joining us today and bearing with us when Gunter will be back next week. So this is
DeVonna.
And I'm Miranda, and that's us signing off. Have a great, wonderful rest of your week. Thank you.
On this show, we talk a lot about living with purpose, slowing down, paying attention, and being intentional about the choices we make every day. Because when we simplify the noise around us, we can better hear what really matters. Empathy, connection, and showing up as the best version of ourselves. That's why I'm genuinely pleased to welcome our newest sponsor, Distill Union. Their philosophy aligns beautifully with what we do here. Distill Union creates slick, thoughtfully designed essentials, wallets, key organizers, phone cases, all built with a less is more approach. Their Wally wallets, Ferris key organizers, these are everyday tools that make life easier, cleaner, and calmer. In that simplicity, there's space for clarity. There's space for change. As a thank you to our Inspire Change community, they're offering 20% off any product with the promo code Inspire Change. Have a look, try them out, and see how simplifying your day can open the door to something deeper. Visit distillunion.com and enjoy 20% off any product with the promo code Inspire Change. That's distillunion.com with promo code Inspire Change to check out.
Hello to all our listeners. We thank you for tuning in and supporting positive social change, which makes you a part of Gunter's efforts in transforming not only men's lives, but lives in general. And we are grateful that you have joined us. This week, our shout out goes out to the cities of Riyadh in the Riyadh region and Jeddah in the Mecca region for bringing Saudi Arabia all the way to number 9 on our top 20 global listeners list. Congratulations! We thank you so much for your continued support as we appreciate your efforts toward positive social change. I, DeVonna Prinzi, the co-executive producer, and our showrunner, Miranda Spigener-Sapon, sincerely thank you and ask that you please take the time to like, follow, subscribe, and share as your efforts make a difference to everyone here at Inspire Change with Gunter. If these stories resonate with you and you would like to engage more with Gunter and the Inspire Change team, please consider joining our Patreon community, where our members find bonus content and early access to video episodes. Membership awaits at patreon.com/inspire change. That's patreon.com /INSPIRECHANGE. As always, thank you to each and every one of our listeners. And most importantly, please keep inspiring positive social change.
Love to hear from you. And if you're interested, please check out my work on www.gunterswoboda.com or www.goodmengreat.com.
Thank you for listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. For more information on the Making Good Men Great movement, or for individual or group coaching sessions with Gunter, visit goodmengreat.com.